Welcome to Unboxing, Play and Profit for the Gaming Curious. I'm Lane Nooney.
And I'm Joost van Dreunen.
And we're here digging deep on why games matter in today's economy. On the docket today, Friday, August 1st, it's Censorship Gone Wild week here at Unboxing. Payment processors in revolt, the UK's Online Safety Act 1 week in, and why itch.io's woes are problems for us all. If you've been confused about what the is happening, we're clearing it up for you right now. All that and more with your two very watchful co-hosts, but first, we've got some catching up to do. There we go. In my head, what's always playing is the Mario song.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh, that explains so much.
And I was remembering that used to be my audio cue for how long I was supposed to wash my hands during COVID. Like they told everybody to do happy birthday in their head twice. But I was just always running the Super Mario like opening doot 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 doot. That's what I was doing in the bathroom. So
Of course you were.
how are you? How's the mountain?
The mountain is good. It's cool. It's like 70 degrees, 75.
Oh, fuck. Man.
No people. I'm having a good time. I really enjoy my time on the mountain, especially during the summertime. How is the city? How is it downhill?
Baking.
Yeah?
We are like heat dome time. Very gross, very nasty.
Does it smell like garbage?
No, it doesn't smell like garbage yet. I mean, I think the city has generally been doing a slightly better job keeping garbage off the streets.
Okay.
It's been, rolling out some initiatives, like those big dumpsters that are in
The bins.
that are in the bins that are in some of the car parking spots.
The Lego bins. Yeah.
Those are helping. But yeah, it's really thick outside. Even when it's not hot, it feels really thick. So we had a couple days where it was like really hot, but it wasn't thick, and now it's like back to being like ugh.
Yeah. Do you have rats? Do you think the rat czar has been doing their job?
Wait, you mean do like I personally have
Like
rats?
in your
what do you mean?
living space between work and home?
I mean, I live in the village, so of course you see rats. Like that's to be expected. Like I'm not shocked. I'm not gonna like drop my monocle about a rat in New York City.
Oh heavens!
Did you? Oh heavens! Did you watch the video podcast we now have?
I did. It's very awkward. I like it. Video. I think you're very well suited for video. I'm still I'm still warming up to the medium. I'm still very cool about it. I think it's a good addition. I think it's gonna be good.
I think you look great.
Wonderful.
I think one of the downsides is like, oh god, like whatever I'm wearing. Like I came from the gym today. I was like, fuck, I guess we're just gonna wear this t-shirt that I got when I refinanced my student loan on the podcast.
That's this is the raw, uncut content that we provide. It's just it's real people having real talk. Really coming from the gym just now.
That's right. Anything else? Have you gotten in your big red truck?
It's unfortunately.
There's a story here.
I killed it. So I've been driving it for a couple of days. It's going well, and then all of a sudden, I'm barreling down this hill, and the brakes stop working. I was like, so I'm sort of like, the typical thing for me to do with anything that's inconvenient is to just deny it and hope that it goes away. And it's that doesn't work generally, but specifically not with automotive technology. And so it turns out I'm out of brake fluid. A buddy of mine was over, and this is the kind of friend who like builds engines. So I was like, hey, you know what? I'm kind of a newbie driver. Why'd you have a look? He's like, sure. Like how serious do I just get like a ball of brake fluid? Do I take it somewhere? he looks at it, he's like, "You cannot drive this. It's leaking everywhere, and the undercarriage is totally rusted through." He's like, "You should not be driving your children to camp in this thing." It's like, all right. So that's the end of that conversation. And I was really enjoying it. Like I felt cool. I felt like, local yokel. Felt
Isn't this the kind of thing that the person who rents you the house is supposed to check? Because isn't it their truck?
it's their truck, it's not required
I'm
that you drive it.
I'm
It's it's
Oh, okay, this
it's
is a
preferred.
feature. Got
This
it,
is
got
this
it.
is I make this my thing. It's this big red Ford Ranger, and it's just, delicious. Unfortunately, it doesn't drive anymore. Well, it drives, but it doesn't brake. So it's sort
I'm
of
not gonna ask
half
any
of it.
questions about your use of adjective there. Okay.
Big
Not
red?
sure I've ever referred to a visual as to a vehicle as delicious, but
No, but
yeah,
it's
okay.
like it's like everything about it is like sort of, it has like a slight delay. So it's like you're driving a boat, and it just feels really like you're just coasting. And as you like barrel up and down these winding roads, oh, it's like you're sailing. It's so wonderful. So unfortunately, that was short lived. But there's so much more that the mountains give you.
I can't wait for the future updates.
How is it? But so how's the week been in downtown Manhattan?
Well, I was away for the weekend. Remember, I was down in Baltimore or outer Baltimore for a
Oh,
computer history conference
that's
that went.
right. You're Nerdfest. How was that?
Yes, that went quite nicely. A good friend of mine, Jason Scott. I didn't know until the day before that he was going to be there too.
Mm,
So I got to, yeah, it really, the talk was a real hit. The 60-year-old white men lined up to get a signed book from me. It was very sweet.
sweet.
Everyone was a big fan. I'm a little bit of an odd duck in an environment like that because everyone there is there to like hack and tweak on, these old computers, and that's not what I do. But I got to meet the guy who, like, a very famous Apple II cracker named 4am. He was there, and
Hmm,
he
hmm.
specifically helped me write one very important footnote in my book. So he is like copiously thanked. He helped like explain some very technical stuff to me so that I could communicate it in my own work. So it was very cute to meet him. And then I kind of spontaneously, because my friend was down and he had a car, borrowed me and his partner borrowed that car, and then we drove down to DC and took in a Washington Mystics game. So I began my life as a WNBA tourist.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I got to see my very first WNBA game in a different space, which was cool. Like, I'm used to Barclays, which is like what, 25,000 people.
Hmm.
This stadium capped out at like 4,700. Like,
Was it like a school
it
auditorium or
was it
something?
was so small, because I walked in, I was like, oh, this is why everyone talks about hating to come to Barclays to play, because we are just like, we're like 5 times the size of anyone else's crowd, and we're having like movie grade fucking special effects. And I saw like 3 AV errors in the first like opening reel here at the Mystics. But the bonus was I paid like 150 for seats that were 3 rows from the court,
Mm.
like tickets that would cost me like 600-700 bucks in New York. So I could see the facial expressions on all the players. I could watch Skylar Diggins give stink eye to the refs. I could see it all. It was very cool.
Is that like business class? Like once you do it one time, you can't really go back into economy? Or
It's yeah, it's going to be tough. This year we have my friend and I, who we share our season's tickets with. There were some of them we sold if we weren't around, and we also kind of strategically sold some of our Caitlin Clark tickets
mm,
at like a very large markup for the kind of people who would only come to a game to see Caitlin Clark. So we raised enough money that we could buy VIP tickets to see the
mm.
Lynx later in August. So we're gonna get to go to the Qatar Airways fancy VIP room where there's like free food, and
Shrimp.
you're in. I'm not sure I
Get
want to eat shrimp at Barclays,
get the
but
shrimp.
once you begin like putting the add-ons, you do begin to, it feels like you have to keep going. I also just bought tickets to go see Unrivaled in Miami in the winter. So
Just buying tickets all day
We're
long.
doing we're doing it.
What do you
Yeah,
do in the summer? Buying
spending
tickets?
money I don't even have. It's great.
Well, I mean, you have time to earn it. That's fine. Or at
Yeah.
least pay it up. I like the Barclays. I have to say, I went to see ESL One and the first championship for Overwatch, and it's a nice venue. So the Overwatch one, because it was such a big to do, I sort of just invited myself into every skybox because it was just people, and so I went from one to the next. Which is why I said, like, you have to get the shrimp. It's quite good.
Oh,
It's
okay.
very
I
nice.
didn't know there was shrimp.
Oh yeah, it's very
So,
nice. I mean,
yeah.
it's whatever. It's just, I mean, it's a skybox. It's not as fancy as you would like, as from what I'm told about tennis or whatever, those kinds of places.
Hmm.
But it's quite nice. I'm excited to hear your experiences afterwards.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll give you all the updates.
all right,
So, should we get to
we have a lot to
today's
cover.
we have oh boy do we. It's a real
I know.
mess
All right, let's
down
start the
in
mess.
video game land.
Cue the mess.
Okay. All right. How much have you been paying attention to what's been going on with all of this? It took me quite a while to put the timeline together. It's been so many headlines I've seen on my social media
Hmm.
about Steam and Itch and these payment processor shutdown notices and also the Online Safety Act in the UK. How much have you managed to pick this apart?
Like 22% of all that,
2%. Okay.
to be exact. No, I've noticed some of the so the backlog here is that I am looking into platform economics and platform power, and so why is it that these companies make the rules for everybody else? The whole conversation between Apple and Epic Games was about, say, payment methods and alternative storefronts, which is a very pertinent and critical piece to any creative, whether large AAA or small indie. And a lot of times those rules are kind of opaque. A lot of times those rules are made sort of without announcement, and suddenly you're out of bounds, you're out of order, you're shut down. So it registered on that in that regard, saying like, oh, here is some rules being made, and people are getting sidelined out of nowhere. I did not look into the specifics so much. Itch.io is the one that really stood out in this context. What's happening? What's going on? What did I miss?
So to try and just give a walkthrough, both for for you and the listeners. So we gotta back this up, but it'll be quick, right? So one of the instigating um, events here is that back in April
Mhm.
2025, so a couple months ago, there was this game called, and this game really just kind of became symbolic for its genre, but there was a game called No Mercy released on Steam and itch.io. And No Mercy is, let's put it generously, as a rape simulator or a fantasy sex simulation in which you rape people related to you. That fun shit, right? Shit that like I do not feel like going to bat for as being accessible on the largest public marketplace for games, right? But anyway, this game comes out. There's a ton of
Wait, what?
international. So, was I moving through that too quickly, sir?
Yeah, I'm just processing some of these keywords. Rape simulator for people, like for relatives. So it's
I mean,
incestuous and
it's yeah. The content of the game includes rape, incest, extreme violence,
okay.
etc.
Okay. All right. I'm
I
just
actually found I looked at the caps of a few walkthroughs and I was like, I'm not doing this to myself. Like I don't think I could actually watch this. Um,
okay. Go
but
on.
so there was international outrage, some government pressure. Ultimately, the developers themselves voluntarily took the games down, right? Valve didn't take it down, Itch didn't take it down. The developers opted to take the games out of these marketplaces. But what was kind of happening while that was going on was that there was an organization called Collective Shout, which is I think we could generously describe as a conservative feminist, if you understand like conservative feminism, group that campaigns against the sexualization of women and girls. That was escalating a focus to game platforms hosting adult content. So like they catch wind of No Mercy and it doesn't kind of matter that No Mercy pulls itself down. There are other games of this ilk, kind of on platforms like Steam and itch, but
Mhm.
more broadly, there are just a lot of games that have what we would generally call not safe for work themes, just like any other medium, right? Just like television or film. There's a lot of queer games, erotic games, a lot of games that are made by LGBTQ people that, Collective Shout kind of, all of it gets kind of lumped together, right? So there is some effort that Collective Shout makes to kind of go after the platform holders, particularly Steam. I don't really think they're all, and Steam just kind of, Valve just kind of like doesn't respond, right? They do the Valve
Mhm.
thing, which is like, we don't, we're kind of impervious to what mere mortals think about us. And so they went to the payment processors. And so they galvanized an online movement to get people to send petitions and emails to
Mhm.
basically the
Mhm.
heads of all of the major credit card companies, or payment processing companies, to get them to revoke the ability to do transactions on these platforms if what those transactions were going to be paying for was, basically game products that they would deem to have a liability around, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So they sent an open letter to payment processors, MasterCard, Visa, Discover, urging them to stop processing payments. No Mercy's already down, but it doesn't matter, right? And so what happens is that in order to deal with this takedown, this kind of payment processor threat, Steam just goes in and removes hundreds of games, right? So they're removing stuff that's tagged with violent sexual themes, but it also winds up taking down a whole bunch of stuff that's, let's say, you've made a game about the fact that you have been sexually assaulted, right? And that is like a queer indie art game that is not a weird sex fantasy simulator. It
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
doesn't matter, right? So Steam is going through and just like burning a line through all of this stuff. Um, you know, and so what we have basically are these kind of conservative advocacy groups,
Mhm.
you leveraging private financial institutions to engage in content moderation, right? So like that, and so a very similar thing happens over at itch.io. It happens a bit differently, but basically anyone whose work was tagged as not safe for work gets de-indexed, so you can't search for the names of those products. And
Mhm.
itch is trying to go through and kind of like manually view. I mean, there's I couldn't even estimate what the volume of content must be, but some of it's overtly sexual stuff, some of it's award-winning works about body image and domestic abuse, games like Consume Me or Last Call. Itch put up a public statement about this, that basically they were being pressured by payment processors to do what they called a sudden and disruptive kind of shutdown. Um, and in order to protect itch.io's ability to process payments for all of its other work, they kind of suppressed all of this specific content, for the time being, that is going under internal review. And that's just that fucking story. But
Okay, so let me run it
question.
back so I understand. So you have this group of people called Collective Shout that is against
Mm-hmm.
the sexualization of women and of gaming content more generally, and having got no response from the platform holders, they went to the payment processors, who promptly probably sent some kind of notification, and that did get the attention from a lot of these platform holders, and they then, instead of sort of meticulously weeding out the the relevant content, the content that Collective Shout was asking for to have removed, it took a big hammer to the thing, and everything was a nail suddenly, including some content or a portion of content that shouldn't have been shadow banned or de-indexed or removed
Yeah.
or whatever accordingly. And so, this, from what I understand, as I'm hearing you talk, I'm reading up on this a little bit. But so we're not talking about like 12 or 13 games. It's like 17,000 games were removed on itch.io.
Yeah, I think I so we're de-indexed.
Okay,
So,
de-indexed. Yeah,
and I can't,
isn't
I
that like
can't,
a euphemism for like? I mean,
no, I mean, it just means that, I mean, shadow ban is another word for it. It means that you can't use search to find them. So, like, technically, I think the links are still live, but
hmm,
if you use, so they're literally removed from the search index. It's basically like, it's the, think like how you would do this on a computer. These
mhm.
works are tagged as not safe for work. All of them can no longer be accessed through the search
No, I
index.
understand
Yeah,
that part, of course.
yeah.
It's the okay, but so they just took a really rough. So the platforms are probably trying to just cover their own business, saying like, "Look, we don't want any trouble with payment companies." I know a few things about that, and we could talk about that too. But so, but they were just, look, let's just over deliver on this, but in the process, basically burn a whole bunch of smaller indie sized companies that have perhaps an artistic or very personal message or a different narrative other than what the initial collective shout project was about.
Yeah, here's where I might nuance this a little and say that, like, collective shout is this kind of, you know its founder is described as like a pro-life feminist. It's this kind of feminist conservative hybrid, and so in many cases these kind of child focused obscenity um, movements kind of inherently wind up targeting other forms of speech that may be sexualized but is not problematic in the same way. But often these organizations like don't care, like they're not, this is not an I mean, there is, I was trying to do some research on this, but like, it's this is probably the same kind of organization that might make a huff about trans women in a bathroom, right? Like that's what I'm going to say. And so the fact that other um works get caught up in this dragnet is kind of inconsequential for them, and probably maybe not explicitly but ideologically part of the agenda, you know.
Hmm. Okay. That's that's unfortunate. Like it's a bit like
So
it's
so this kind of idea of protecting minors from sexual content gets used to justify policing adult queer or body image narratives, and that's kind of exactly what we're seeing in
mhm.
the Online Safety Act in the UK, which we'll talk about in a bit. But like, I sort of see these entities as kind of cut from the same cloth between the OSA and Collective Shout, right? That they're like, I also do not want to go to bat for a game like No Mercy,
Mhm.
um, but it's not about like I don't think it shouldn't exist. I maybe think it just shouldn't exist on the, that Steam could do a little better cleaning its own house.
Well, I mean, I think that's the that's sort of like the business angle for me here. But before we get to that, like the the game that sort of broke the camel's back was No Mercy.
Yeah.
Was that the trigger
Yeah.
in all this? Wow. I guess, there could have been no better title because that's that seems rather merciless.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's like a perfectly internet designed controversy where it's like, you know, oh, just some, what was, I wrote some like glib note about it. It's just like a whole ass drama engineered to make everyone defend the worst shit on earth.
mhm.
Like that, like that's sort of what's going on. To everyone making the worst bad faith arguments you possibly can, and maybe sort of, yeah, missing the kind of political and ideological layers over top of this.
Yeah,
And
politics sort of like that sort of that generally doesn't make it to the top 10 in these contexts. It's like,
yeah,
you know, but so do we have any sense of like how many titles were, say, unjustly de-indexed out of
that
those 17,000?
I haven't done I haven't done a, I don't know that none of the news I've looked at
There's no
has
estimations.
projected estimates. I haven't looked at news in the past 24 hours.
Hmm, hmm.
But like the general, what we know from like prior historical um, kind of, if, we know how like financial gatekeeping worked with sex work, right? That it will disproportionately impact your more vulnerable populations
Hmm.
because one, they're already operating in a gray area. Two, they do not have the kind of large scale institutional kind of cover your ass capacity. And so, because, and so here's where I think the distinctions between Steam and itch.io are quite interesting, right?
Hmm.
Because itch is this kind of fairly small company that's largely kind of community moderated, and these kinds of pressures definitely have a bigger impact on something like itch than they do on Steam, which is, we don't know how much Valve makes, but we also know that it has, what is it, the largest rate of revenue per employee of any company in the game industry, right? Isn't
Hmm.
it something kooky like that?
Yeah, Steam makes sort of an estimated transacts about $10 billion a year, and the total, and according to these court documents that were part of the discovery in a recent lawsuit, there's 79 employees at Valve working on Steam specifically. There's a few hundred, but they do other stuff. So you have basically 80 people pushing 10 billion, so take 30%, so $3 billion. So it comes down on a company level to something like $42 million per employee, which is 40x, if
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
more, the average in the industry. So it's a very clear example of how disproportionate the value capture is in business terms of platform holders compared to publishers. Like there's just no comparison. Like if you think about a Ubisoft making $2 billion a year, but they have 20,000 employees. All right, do the math, whatever. You come down to $100,000 a piece. So it's just like an incredible difference between what creative firms manage to retain in terms of revenue on a per employee basis compared to a platform. And in exchange for that, so often, and that's sort of the looming thing with the platform holders, is that they don't really provide any kind of transparency or just like a dedicated team. Like,
Yeah.
how are you managing all of this with 80 people,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Exactly. And yeah, the surprise answer is you're not, right?
mm,
Which is exactly how we get into a situation like this, right?
yeah. So
Um,
so they could do a lot more. Yeah, I agree with you on all of this, in that it creates an unfair disadvantage for, say, smaller, like economically more vulnerable, or just sort of from an artistic perspective more vulnerable voices. And it goes against the inclusivity of what the platform really tries to be, right? They distinctly say, we are not a walled garden, we don't want to have all these obstacles, people should tell their own stories, and etc. But then when it comes to the monies, you know that scrutiny disappears very quickly, or it's just not a priority, easily said. Itch.io, I can see as a smaller company that it's probably not set up, but like a Valve, like you've been making a surplus of billions for years. You could hire 12 people or 120 people or 1,200 people. Like, it's not really, but they don't want to do that for some reason, and
yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
I wonder what it is, right? So, but
And
it's.
they're, well, I mean, do we need to wonder, and like they're also, they are not a community, right, in the way that something like itch.io is a community. Like they have
Mhm,
boards and all of that, and there's lots of kind of social,
mhm,
um kind of features or mechanisms inside the platform, but this is not a space where the community gets to weigh in,
mhm,
or kind of make decisions with, whereas you much more get that sensibility about something like itch.io, right?
mhm, mhm.
um, that who they are curating for is a really important part of what they're up to,
Yeah, I wonder, it's like, I mean, how much work would it be to index 17,000 titles? Like how many hours of how many people's time would you need to, like, do you spend like a couple of summer interns? So you're like, all right, you got three of them just like indexing this, just like moderators on Meta or Roblox or any of those platforms say, okay, let's count it all out. And in some of those platforms, they have, of course, millions of messages every day, and that goes perhaps even further because of the nature of some of the news footage, or the images that they circulate, or just the awfulness that they spread. 17,000 titles, that doesn't seem like it's that much work. You could you could roll up your elbow. I
Yeah,
mean,
it would take a
easily.
while, but it seems like they're kind of mowing through it by they're doing, and I'm sure Steam is not doing this, but I my sense is that they are going to do a human authentication on every one of these titles, as best they can, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, like especially like I spent so much time working with and talking to companies that take large data sets, analyze them in some automated fashion, whatever the content, whether it's numbers or letters or words or sentiment or reviews, and you can at least bucket things relatively easily through automation. You say, okay, well, this is our kind of okay bucket. This is our absolutely not okay, but whatever. Like you can index all this stuff relatively easily. It's just what's the holdup? So I
yeah,
guess the question with regards to like who should be in charge of moderating this is sort of obvious. Like I feel you kind of answered that. Like that should be the platforms, right? It doesn't seem like financial institutions should be
yeah,
the arbiter here. Like
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Because it also just leaves such a door open. I mean, financial institutions are so sensitive, right, and also
Mhm.
easily tricked. Like, can't like this is just a trick, right? But they're kind of such boobs that they fall for this shit all the time, right? Like, all you have to do is convince a payment processor
Mhm.
that they might be involved in something illegal, and it's just like their immediate reaction is just like, well, then we cease being a service provider, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm just looking up the itch.io update from 7 days ago, where they were saying that they are conducting a comprehensive audit of content to ensure we can meet requirements. Pages will remain de-indexed as we complete our review. And I think it's people, right? It's people power who are going to be doing that. The other part of this is that it's one of a kind of host of strategies that just make life harder for already broke creators, right? So now we have this fallow period. Even if you're not making enough money off a game for it to it's another, like, we're already, so many people in the modern economy are fractured into all of these gigafied subsidiary income streams, right? So you need this much from your Patreon and this much from your itch and this much from your
Mhm.
fucking Instagram live reels, and everyone, there's lots of people spackling together a kind of bare living from all of these different channels. And when one of them gets screwed, right, or messed up, or played around with, it has real financial consequences for, and disproportionately impacts often the people who are already kind of most marginalized here.
Mhm. That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, you'd expect. I mean, so video games have always been under this scrutiny. I mean, to this day, people are deeply skeptical of video games. I say that as a parent. Other parents talk to me and they're all like, "Well, I don't know. This doesn't look like I want my kids playing any of this." And these kinds of stories like this feel
Yeah,
like they're part of like a sort of contemporary trend where it used to be about video game violence that we don't hear that so much anymore. So now we have all these other things, right? Where you have people recruiting kids through online
to be
games
Nazis in Roblox.
to be
Yeah, yeah,
Nazis or like commit some kind of act of terrorism. It's just like while I'm sure that happens, if I read some of these Interpol studies, it's like okay, that I mean we're talking millions of people. I'm sure that there's a percentage there, so it does deserve the attention. At the same time, it's like that's what immediately makes the headline, and then 99% of everything else is sort of
yeah,
not interesting. So people like to vilify video games, and so this is another one of those. Like it's just always a
yeah,
force of badness, and it's like judging the entire sports of soccer by the behavior of a few hooligans. You're like, yeah, that's really
just a
inappropriate.
few hooligans.
I mean, even if it's all 17,000 out of 200,000 people, that's still like, what, 8%,
Yeah,
which is the same percentage, by the way, if you looked at the like entire 90s and 2000s of all the games that came out during that period, only 8% of them had a R rating, coincidentally, and but so that 8%, and but they get 99% of the coverage in media.
yeah.
So it's always this warped sense of what's really going on.
I
But
mean,
it
it's go ahead.
no, well, the final thought is like, okay, so you have always this push pull with regards to like who should be in charge or who gets to say what, and it raises a lot of questions. Like, so what's the industry at large doing about this? Like, so it's there's
Mhm.
a degree of censorship here, but so isn't like where is the ESA in this, or do they have something to say on this? Is there
I
some
did. I sent a skeet about. I was like, wonder where the ESA is on all of this, and everyone took it as a joke. Like we know
Mm,
the ESA is not going to show up because nothing falling under the purview of this is one of their. They are not a paid representative of any of the people or communities or even companies that are falling under this. Though it's worth pointing out that Collective Shout has targeted like a mainstream, I think a mainstream AAA game. Like there was a PlayStation game, I'm totally blanking on the name, that came under their scrutiny for accusations of violence against women. Right. This is one of their kind of like bread and butter go-to topics for sure.
hmm
You know,
So are you saying then that these organizations like Collective Shout are inadvertently harming small independent voices, or are they after them to shut them down? Like which
I think it's something in between. Do I think there's intent?
sort of like a bonus?
Yeah. I don't think. I mean, there is no stated intent, right?
Uh-huh.
But I would say there is a kind of ideological veneer that makes it clear why they're not worried about um, compounded harm, right?
hmm
That, we pushed, some, queer, trans, or BIPOC creator out of the edge of being able to financially sustain themselves, whatever, that the
Sort of
knock on
collateral
effects,
damage.
yeah, the knock on effects of this kind of behavior does not seem to be like a priority talking point within the organization, right?
hmm
So while and in that sense it is of a piece with something like, let's say, the Online Safety Act that we see in the UK, where the or what was, they attempted to pass kind of the US version of that with COSA, the Kids Online Safety Act, and that I believe has failed, but I'm sure will come up for an attempt again. um and so it becomes, when they can't pass this stuff legally, they leverage financial institutions basically to enforce cultural conservatism under the guise of risk management, and that's really the equation.
hmm
And they do not, I don't know, I've not seen evidence that they are like amenable to the conversation. I haven't asked, but you know
The payment processor, the
no,
which
the
are like
advocacy orgs that are doing this, right? They don't see
uh,
that part as their mandate, right? Or their position would be to blame Steam. If we're having problems, then that's
mhm.
on the platforms, right? So it's a real mess because everyone's working with the worst of intentions, right?
I mean, do you think that like calling the industry to the mat for having sexualized content, do you think that that's a bad intention, or is it the method by which they're doing it?
I think that there's a distinction in ideological posture between, let's say, what something like Collective Shout is doing and what like Anita Sarkeesian was trying to do like 10 years ago, right?
For
And
those of us who were 12 at the time, can you what was Anita up to?
she was putting together Feminist Frequency, which, I think its most prominent output was a series of YouTube videos that were kind of like Feminism 101 educational about the representation of women in games. So it was
hmm
particularly, I think the subtitle for that series was called Tropes versus Women. And she
hmm
looked at this in, I think, film, television, video games. And she was like, what are the consistent ways by which women are demeaned, treated as property, rendered as objects, objectified in visual media, right? And there's certainly no disagreement about that fact. But it's that there's a kind of conservative edge to the gatekeeping in
hmm
the political structure of something like Collective Shout that makes it not about a feminist critique purely, but also about a general shutting down on the grounds of uh you know how would I put it? The protecting minors and therefore using that to remove all sexualized content, and that obviously rings a lot of contemporary alarm bells, because those are the same arguments being used to kind of like try and like push trans people out of public life and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the voices on the fringe of all this sort of
And
repeatedly
yeah,
get battered.
and maybe I haven't also said this, but like, a lot of these works are depictions of trauma by people who have experienced that trauma, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so they're making art about their experience, and that too is getting just kind of swept up into this bucket, right?
Yeah, it's sort of, so is there like a longer term, I mean, so you mentioned this now, right? So like 10 years ago around all that. So is this a sort of a cyclical thing? Is this a repeat, or is there a progression? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Like, how would you describe? Is there a trend line? Can we draw a trend line here?
I mean, I think what I find so interesting about this case is it's like the expression of kind of three prior existing historical trajectories, right? One is like this long history of censorship in video games, which we can track back to the early 80s, and even at that point it was concerns in one part about sexual obscenity. Think
Mm-hmm,
about a game like Custer's Revenge that was created by a porn game company making third party cartridges for the Atari,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and they produced a, a gross fucking work in which General Custer has to make it through a whole bunch of arrows being shot in his direction so he can rape a native woman, right? Like, and there were there was like lots of good reasons to object to this game. But those tactics were also often leveraged to do things like create to try and run arcades out of town, or to wholesale ban, right, the kind of local consumption of any content related to this medium, or to put, there was a whole moral craze around arcade gaming in the 1980s.
mm-hmm,
This reinvents itself in the early 90s, where we get the congressional hearings that are about violence, yes, but they're also about sexuality and obscenity. So games like Night Trap get mentioned in those. I believe Leisure Suit Larry comes up in those hearings, right? The threat of the government stepping in to moderate this is what leads the industry to create the ESRB, right? So the
mm-hmm,
Entertainment Software Association and the ESRB kind of come out of that pressure, right? That where the government says either you moderate yourselves or we'll do it for you.
mm-hmm.
And so I'm not sure, I can't quite remember the last time we had a good sex in games freak out that got this big. Um, but and then there's
Sex in games freak out.
and then there's the part of this that is about financial gatekeeping and
Mm-hmm,
sexual content, sex work, right? So we can look at things like the 2021 OnlyFans crisis, where the platform said it was going to ban sexually explicit content. Like, OnlyFans, that's all you do is sexually explicit content. Like, what are you
mm-hmm.
doing? Under
Quite
threat from,
profitably so, by the way.
yeah, under threats from payment processors. And then, that didn't quite take hold, but it was part of a general chilling effect to kind of push these people out of financial legibility.
Mm-hmm,
And then, of course, what's so interesting here is the tactical implementation is straight out of like Gamergate alt-right harassment tactics, right? You don't like what 10 years ago it was, you don't like what Gama Sutra is publishing on their website, go to their advertiser Intel, and somehow you've almost nearly demonetized the entire platform, right?
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
don't like what Valve has on their website, you're going to threaten a far more risk averse company, like MasterCard or Visa, to get them to pull down. And so it's about kind of knowing your marks, right? And it's
mm-hmm,
a very kind of internet brain way of thinking, and knowing where you can pressure certain points in the financial ecosystem to get the results you want, and how to do it at scale. So now you have all these online petitions that allow you to generate, they allow 5,000 people to send an automated email to the president of MasterCard or whatever the hell.
Mhm.
Like it's that kind of stuff. This stuff can now happen at a volume and move at a speed and produce us a impression of outrage where one may actually not even really culturally exist, um, at a scale and volume that was not previously
Mhm.
possible, I think.
That's interesting idea. Yeah, I from a just a dry business perspective, like that's a strategic consideration, right? It's the so my entry into this is like early MMOs would have issues with kids borrowing a parent's credit card, and the last thing you want to do is get an angry parent to go to your credit card processor and say,
Yes.
"Joey spent $1,200 on whatever. I want my money back." And then the credit card company sees like enough of these tickets show up on their back end, and they go, "Publisher XYZ with this game is somehow confusing or tricking people or whatever. There's something wrong with their payment steps that is making it too easy or whatever for kids to do this, and you get blacklisted. And the problem is once you get on the blacklist, that means that you can't monetize your audience, and that's a problem. Like the whole point in a for-profit setting is making money. So what people then do is they self-regulate. They start to really get serious. They, of course, immediately refund, and they're so nice about it. Of course, issues happen all the time. This happens to this day, but it's covered. Like they figured it out in some way. You get a customer support network set up, all this kind of thing. So so that's how that starts, which is sort of just like the usual way of doing business. Like at some point, a credit card processor is an arbiter with regards to the merchants out there that are just ripping you off. Because some companies are just set up that way, or there's a mistake, and there's too many mistakes. Fix your business, fix your checkout process, whatever. But it sends a signal to a company, a game company or otherwise, that is trying to do business. So to then leverage that, it's a little ham-fisted. I do agree that credit card companies, look, they deal with billions of transactions. They can't be sitting around weeding through all this stuff. There has to be at some point some layer that decides who is on the right and the wrong side of whatever line there is. At that point, yeah, you as a game company, you have to be wise. You have to be smart about it. And so it becomes a strategic consideration. It has to be baked into your design, whether that's the front end of the experience, where like, look, by making this, I expose myself in this way. I put myself in a certain ratings category, in a certain part of the ecosystem, and that's vulnerable to XYZ, disproportionately so compared to everybody else. And the back end has to be organized too. You can't, it's just, it's a money business. So mistakes are only allowed so much. And so if your business, if your system is broken, the people will come after you. Like it's just like not like you're not paying rent. If you're not paying employees, they stop showing up. Same thing with vendors. So all that kind of makes sense, but it is in this case then at a scale like we're dealing with these ecosystems. At some point, my question would be is like, where are the platforms in this? Like, why aren't they helping out filtering, or look, make somebody index 2,500 different characteristics about their game so that you have a really clear sense of what's going on? Like, what is your game about? These things. And if it turns out that you're confused about your own game or you're lying about it, now you've put yourself out of bounds. Now it's on you. But if you are just a creative person expressing a vision or a voice, whatever, there should be some kind of arbitrage. And it just, because of the size of platforms, this is there's a book called Cloud Empires, and the argument there is like there's compared to nation states, platform operators deal with so many transactions and conflicts among those transactions at a scale that is just insurmountable and unprecedented, that they would have to invest so much money that it just doesn't make sense. Like this is the Amazons of the world, the eBays, like it's just hundreds of thousands of millions of transactions daily. How do you do arbitrage at that scale? It's just
Yeah.
impossible. And so part of it is just a problem of platform economics. It's just endemic to the economic model. But you could do a better job making those guidelines a little bit more transparent. You could assign 1,000 people to sort this out. Like I don't see the bandwidth issue here at all.
Instead of waiting for the liability to come to your door,
Well,
you could, yeah.
agree or disagree with pro-life feminists. I'm still a little I'm still trying to understand that, but it's just like, the political angle is, whether that's yours or not, it's like, why does it come to this like outfit of 12 people sort of
Of like
scattered for,
5 wine moms, like that's really
over,
it's really the vibe that the website gives you. Like
it's you start, I mean, if this was all white men having something to say, people would be like, hey, what's going on here? It's like, there's a it raises a lot of questions, but why does it come to a club like that, as sincere as they might be in their own efforts? It's like,
yeah,
really, that's where,
yeah,
like, so
yeah.
all of Steam is now partially regulated and operated by
By
these,
this group of women.
by
Yeah.
this by this
Um
sort of like nonprofit club of people with an opinion. Like, I respect that, and also, really, like, that's what we're doing, that's how we're managing this. Like, that seems a little, like, it's just
yeah, like
amateur.
there should have maybe been a half of a check that could have happened before we got there, maybe. Um maybe we need to stop letting there be businesses that sell like a million products. Like maybe that just isn't helpful anymore.
Well, it's starting to collapse under its own weight a bit.
I want artificial caps on everything. I want
Hmm.
you're allowed to sell 30 things a month and that's all you get and you can rotate your stock and
Oh no, but I'm with you on that. It's the strangest things. Like, I think it's just the sheer size of this, and it just gets
yeah.
lost. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, so discoverability is one version of this problem, right? And the
hmm
kind of content moderation scale is one of the others. I think the Online Safety Act is a really interesting kind of hook into this and also broadens the conversation
hmm
in some interesting ways. It's just like, God, I have so much sympathy for. It's just a terrible week to work at Itch like that. Like, oh my God.
So
So
so you're sympathetic towards itch.
I'm sympathetic toward Itch. Yeah. I think these. I mean, Itch has literally made a name for itself being a place where small creators sell and share their works.
Hmm
Itch has pretty good politics as far as I've ever seen. The itch bundles, these things where they're like, we've bundled 1,000 games for $100 to help feed Palestine, right? I mean, they do this stuff pretty regularly. Big fundraising campaigns for outside issues, and that's where and that you don't have the same. Everyone I know who's an indie game dev sells their stuff on Itch in addition to, because Steam has all of these like embedded problems in it, and it's
hmm
far more of a and there's some people who just won't sell on Steam as a matter of principle, right? So Itch really is your like indie game store. um it's
hmm
the most mainstream probably of the indie game stores. So
Huh. So what's a good outcome here? Is like itch is gonna just hire someone to deal with this, and then it will be resolved, and it will become an even better platform.
I mean, it would, well, there's one part, they can maybe deal with the. Well, let's remember, like every day this goes on, there's people who can't make any money selling their stuff on Itch, right? So first of all, right, that's a net negative, no matter what outcome we get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can't. It seems like they are going to throw bodies at this to try and, I mean, it must be just like coffee all day long, party, not party, but like party in the negative sense, over in that HQ where they're just reviewing, these games and trying to create kind of standards models around them. But then you have something like the Online Safety Act, which it really can't do anything about, right? Or what I mean by that is like that is now law.
Mm-hmm.
That is like from the governmental level, and so it has to provide, you know, so long as they host not safe for work content, they have to in the UK, or for UK users, they have to provide
Mm-hmm.
authentication, age authentication. There's a whole series of things that the Online Safety Act requires. So this went into place on January 25th, like not that long ago, right? Like within the past week. applies to all end user search engine services in the UK. So here, games are being treated like social media platforms. So if
Mm-hmm.
it's social, video sharing, video games, anything that has online communication
Mm-hmm.
falls under this mandate, regulated by this kind of independent online safety regulator called Ofcom. And one part is taking action against illegal content, one part is protection against harmful content to children, and the other part is kind of greater adult controls over content and online interaction. And the biggest part of that being making sure that, quote, underage individuals are not accessing what is considered, quote, adult content. And so, how do you do that online? You do age authentication. How do you do that? I woke up to a message from a friend on Instagram telling me she had to hook her, try to in order to access her Blue Sky DMs, she was trying to authenticate her age through Stripe via the Epic Game Store. Like,
What?
like there's a whole clusterfuck. Like if you clusterfuck happening in the UK right now. So any game with voice or text chat, right? Studios have to have content moderation tools, age verification to gate features. Yeah, I woke up to a wild email from a UK games journalist and indie game maker who
Mm-hmm.
had all of his stuff in the UK deplatformed,
Oh, straight up.
until
Not
they
even.
straight up removed, right? Until they and the other part of this is it's just trying to figure out, okay, how do we deal with this? You know, we're going to try and find a third party age authentication service. They're going to have to pay for that, right? So the other part of this is these kind of legislative level demands really favor
Mm-hmm.
large corporate incumbents, right? Microsoft can throw money at this, outsource all of the different elements that are now required to gatekeep their games,
Mm-hmm.
and a place like itch or much smaller indie shops do not have that kind of leverage, right? So it just kind of like nukes a lot of the quality of the ecosystem for the parts of that ecosystem that are in the most diminished capacity to already kind of survive. We're going to see things like games dropping
Mm-hmm.
social, right, features because you just don't want to moderate that kind of shit. That's the outlook is um, rough.
It's like China with extra steps.
And
Like
man, whoever thought there'd be extra steps over China?
they just go like, look, you're not 18, based on your social security
On
number,
your
and
Yeah.
so nope.
Yeah, you can't get around the OSA by just holding up a picture of your father over your face during the face scan. I remember hearing about kids in China who were doing that.
That's look, it's ridiculous. I mean, my anxiety here is that it will become just more, just an avenue for more surveillance. Both on the consumer
Absolutely.
side as well on the producer side. Like, because it has to be checked and checked again, it's going to be scrutinized on both ends, making it less free of sorts, making it less accessible of sorts, and you know that limits a medium in any regard. Like, it is the same for the same reason you have ownership rules around newspapers and broadcast television. There's going to be entry barriers that are artificial because of problem X, and therefore now we can't have nice things, right? That's the short version. So I'm not sure if the UK is really the best tip of the spear here. I mean, they're historically, like, also if you look at the regulation around gambling, they're like super sensitive and very, very conservative. Even more, it's like they're only second to Belgium, where
Mm.
if it even just like is in the same building as gambling, it's a hard no. It's like, it's just, they're really strict, and so it's like, okay. And I do think that it has merit with regards to some aspects, like, social media for underage children, that kind of stuff. Like, of course, and somebody has to go first. It, with the UK, I would argue that you know they have this like odd conservative political landscape nowadays, and
Yeah, totally.
but they still want to sort of lead the world and show leadership globally. Like, well, but you guys got out. of
they're
your legal.
very obsessed with sort of, they invoke child safety as this kind of neutral moral
Hmm.
imperative, but it disproportionately harms, queer, erotic, experimental, like all these other forms of life, right?
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean, it very quickly makes you feel like it's just a bunch of boomers that are very uncomfortable and they wanted to go away. Like it just has this sort of knee-jerk sense to it for me. And you're like, all right, and I get that that's kind of the moment, but as a business, like, how do you navigate this? Like, okay, so then we're just gonna get all this vanilla stuff in the middle. Like, it creates
yeah,
sort of a creative tension that I'm not convinced. This is in many ways like, I mean, Steam's position in all this kind of oscillates. But it used to be, of course, that Steam was very much about like, hey, we should have digital distribution in markets where there isn't a very clear economic structure that mirrors what we're used to in the US or in the West. And so places like Russia, publishers wouldn't really enter it. And then Steam was like, no, no, this is not a piracy problem. This is a distribution problem. But what the problem is that we're not offering content to a market of consumers that allows them access and pay for things. And so we're going to just solve it. And that's what they did. That's why Russia is such a big contingent on Steam. This is why China is such a big contingent. It provides access in marketplaces where there otherwise isn't. And that's the part that everybody likes about Steam, right? That's the part where it's like, yes, we need more of this innovative thinking. And then you look at something like this, it's like, well, okay, so can we solve the distribution problem around this? Like, what's the big? You could solve it for Russia. Like, why can't you solve it for a few dozen indies? Like, what's the deal? So I'm just very confused. What the holdup is, and I would ask if I could talk to Gabe. I would say, Gabe, what's the holdup? I mean, they're super smart. It's maybe I think they're understaffed. I think fundamentally, like itch.io and Valve are just understaffed
yeah,
organizations.
understaffed for completely different reasons.
It's just like
Right? Maybe
hire
like
more people.
2% of all Steam earnings should go to itch. Maybe we could have like a, um, right? Yeah, it's a really, you can just feel the sort of soft right-leaning conservative encroachment kind of wrapped around all of this, right? it,
Hmm.
it just like there's a whole kind of, you know rightward drift that
Hmm.
many of these different initiatives are a part of,
Hmm.
that that feels like it's going to end up somewhere not good, right? And so, yeah, corporations can quote unquote like weather the storm because they have the wallet to be able to throw money at these problems. But when your ecosystem is like shredded and out of creativity, and people are gonna want to find a way to make stuff that inspires them, and also like, I don't think anyone would disagree that the ability to find new avenues for distribution has been a general net gain for the game industry, right? It's
Hmm.
increased creativity and innovation, and um doing stuff that further kind of leaches that out of the broader community. All of the game industry should go to bat for that, right? Regardless of whether it shows up, you can measure it on your spreadsheets.
Hmm. Yeah, look, I agree with you in that regard. This is an issue that isn't unique to indies
Yeah,
because if we're all about this medium and sort of the diversity of voices, I like this word pluriformity. Like then you got to be about it. Like you can't just cherry pick. If you're a AAA publisher, like you gotta show support a little bit and be you can't just take the benefits of it when it serves you and then ignore the rest. Like you have a leadership position and a responsibility, particularly in a creative cultural industry, which regardless of your viewpoints or the kind of games that you like to play, like that's what it is, right? It's deeply emotional. It describes life and it tells you who you are and it tells you where you are in the world, whatever. And so all those things matter. And then you have to kind of be supportive of viewpoints that perhaps aren't yours, not perhaps in words, but at least in action. Like you got to subscribe to the fact that there needs to be more done from the landlords that govern these spaces. I think that that's an obvious one, but perhaps that's not obvious to people with
yeah. I'm
spreadsheets.
gonna I'm gonna call 311 on Steam.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, nothing but rats in the system, right? Bring it full circle. All right, this
Very.
has been a bummer of an episode.
I think it's
Did we?
fascinating. I
I,
disagree. No, this is the fringe.
well,
Like
yeah,
where's
yeah,
this
yeah.
conversation in like social
This,
media? Where's this conversation in like broadcast television? You know?
no, I mean, yeah, I think that I'm excited about this episode, right? And that hopefully bringing some clarity and perspective to folks who, haven't been able to read like the 15 different fucking articles you apparently needed to keep track of just to,
Mhm.
follow what's been going on, um, just in the past week or two. But I have this weird sense of foreboding about where it's all going. But
Where's it going?
raise I told you it just doesn't feel drift, right word drift. That's where it
Mm.
feels like it's going. Bad.
Mm.
But I was trying to transition to you being able to do an own. I was like, let's talk about something positive.
Oh Lord. That's what it's come to. I have to be the jolly fella here.
I mean, just this week, I think
Justice once. Can you
just
justice once?
could you, sir, just take your male privilege and give me an own?
Well, my first own is my male privilege. Obviously, it's like that's I'm just enjoying that
just
every day.
just just yeah, waft it in your truck. Does it have a is it um
It's like
manual?
it's no, it's one of those where like the shifter's behind the
Oh,
steering
the
wheel.
shift is on the side. That's also very
It's I,
satisfying.
f- I feel incredibly manly driving that thing. Well, I used to back in the day when it was still working yesterday. My own this week is gonna be disappointing for you. I uh I don't have one. I have nothing to fucking look forward to, Lane. that's that's just short of it. Like what ends up happening is it's like I'm sitting here trying to always like wreck my brain. It's like I gotta find like the silver lining.
We talked about this too. I mean, what's funny is
Yes,
like it's not like we didn't have a conversation about this 2 days ago. You could have found something. I was
you
like,
know,
I've got the pwn, you do the own, and you were like, sure. 2 days later, still nothing.
no, no, I'm just
Still
not.
shaking a penny around in
I'm
that tin cup.
too Dutch. I'm too Dutch. It's not working. I
What are you playing right now?
what am I playing right now? I'm back to Clash Royale and Marvel
Oh,
Snap because I'm off the grid mostly. So that's an interesting one. I like the sort of simplistic style of those games. Like whatever, like it doesn't involve a lot of equipment and sitting down. You can just kind of play it on the couch. And I needed a break. I fell back into the finals, and then I've been playing Death Stranding, the first one, too,
oh.
because I played the intro for Death Stranding 2. I was like, okay, I got to back up a whole previous game because this is a high caloric experience for someone like me. Like it's like I'm sitting in my office. I have a PlayStation in my office, and I'm sitting there going like, all right, let me just pop this in and play this. And it's just wow, it's just an amazing experience. Like the first 20 minutes, I was just blown away. I don't know what it just like,
Whoa.
and it's
Okay.
and I realize by saying this, of course, like uh, what that means is like I just haven't been playing anything innovative. Like
Yeah.
I go through these loops. I'm very loyal to some of these games, and I fell back into the finals, and I've been doing a little better. That's good, but it's the same couple of titles, and so Death Stranding 2 comes out. I played for, but it's like, oh shit, I gotta go back. So I'm back in Death Stranding, the first one, and it's so weird. And suddenly, of course, I forget her name, but the female lead, Sophie or whatever her name is, the blonde French lady, she suddenly is like I end up watching Mission Impossible and she's in it, and then I watch this other movie and it's like she just shows up everywhere in all of my timelines, and so I feel watched. But it's a overall like Death Stranding has really been a mind blowing experience so far for me. Are you into those, or is it not
I have not
weird enough for you?
so I'm an Xbox person, so like I admit because it's a
Oh,
PlayStation exclusive, right? Or is it now also? Have they released the first one for Xbox?
that's a good
Um,
question. I don't know about that.
they, but yeah. So I missed. It might be out now, but I still haven't even upgraded. I don't even have the most recent Xbox. Like I can't play Cyberpunk on my Xbox because it's like the previous gen. This is beginning to be a good argument for me by getting a new Xbox, but um I don't. Are you talking about Mads Mikkelsen? Mads Mikkelsen? No, that's a
No,
man. Sorry. Scandinavian name, can't tell. Um,
it's the lady. Oh,
Le 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 Le. I can't pronounce that either. Um, this is like watching two 80-year-olds try to use the internet. Like, what are we doing?
yeah, it's a
Our
dude.
producer, I think, is trying to Google this for us. The blonde girl, like,
Yeah, Leia
okay,
Seydoux. Yes, Leia
yeah,
Seydoux.
you're European. Can you pronounce that last? Like, if there's an OUX, I don't want to get involved. I
Seydoux.
don't.
That, I couldn't like. She's this sort of weird, like European background, like because her accent is odd, and she's just like an odd person. But then you watch her as an actress, it's incredibly
Oh
talented. Like,
shit,
hey,
she's in Blue is the Warmest Color. Oh,
see, like all
okay,
of a sudden you're like, oh,
okay,
that's
okay,
the experience I've been having. You're like, this
okay.
lady is all over my life. Like I didn't. She knows me better than I know her. So, so that's why. So, all this to say, this is like I've always been a skeptical fan of Hideo Kojima. I get it. It's also, I have a lot of feelings around his work and the man himself because he's like such a classic, like, oh, video game designer rock star. You're like, this, some of this is marketing. Like somebody's sending out like social media posts to make him famous, and whatever. Like it can't only be on grit and talent. But now I'm not sure. Like
No,
now I
he's a pure weirdo.
Yeah.
I think he's an actual. Most of these fuckers are not bullshit, but Kojima is is a real auteur. You
So
know,
I that's and
he
that's
might be like one of the only ones in the mainstream. I think so.
so maybe then that is the own that I now discover in real time, which is like I'm learning
Inside,
about myself. I'm
the
learning about
own was
myself.
inside you all the time, all along.
Yes.
There we go, and we got there. There
Oh,
we go.
that was a
What a
delivery.
relief. What a relief. I did
So
so
how can
much.
we diffuse this with some poning?
So my pwn of the week
Mm.
relates to what we've been talking about for the larger context of this episode, which is that um, articles over at Waypoint have quit over article removals. Basically, Vice's owner, Savage Ventures, ordered two of the articles on Waypoint, being the video games vertical for Vice. They're a reporter, Anna Valens. I hope that is how to pronounce your name. Um, Published a couple pieces specifically linking the Steam payment processor drama to Collective Shout. Like she published that linkage. To be clear, this is a linkage they publicly state on their website, but she was the one who kind of tied it together, brought it to mainstream reporting, and the owner of Vice ordered those articles be removed. There's nothing like she published on publicly available information. She did not. There is no libel, no slander, no nothing. Right? There's nothing she said that wasn't factual and like from the source itself. And out of so basically the owner of this news outlet is engaging in direct editorial interference. There was no legal threat, no real legal threat. There could have been I think probably the concern was that Collective Shout might try and engage in litigation or something about what was posted or said. But to
I,
repeat, it was all documented. It was all stuff that was documented on their own site. Um, and so Yeah. I mean, we have literally the owner of a online news outlet um, deleting articles that they don't like, that are factually true. Like this is so
Well, okay,
you know
okay. Two questions.
games journalism further hollowed out by private equity. That's the
All right, so that's an escalation.
yeah.
That's an Also, Vice is not doing so well that it can really afford to lose more audience. But so the first question is like, so what was the problem exactly? Like, was anybody upset, or was it just an editorial decision in a vacuum?
It was, I believe, an well, it was not an editorial. It was a ownership decision about editorial content. I don't think it was made in a vacuum, but I do not believe there was a threat posed or made. Um, the
Leadership
exact,
at
yeah,
Savage Ventures.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's all other things contributing to this. It sounds like a lot of people are fed up. Writers are being very underpaid. They're understaffed. They're not being backed up legally. Um,
Hmm.
and now the owners of the outlet can just axe stories that they don't want covered, which
Uh,
apparently for some reason means exposing the fact that a nonprofit Australian organization that owns the fact that they did this.
yeah, this is odd. I mean, it's first of all not very savage from Savage Ventures, but so the idea that they could just like have this sort of finger of God on like content of a subsidiary of an investment. I mean, it makes you wonder how much ownership did Vice give up to Savage Ventures to keep the store open. But it's just sort of like a weird thing. They're from Nashville, so
I
I
mean,
don't know.
and what's interesting is like the only place, the main place reporting on this is Aftermath, right? I mean, it can't be reported on Waypoint. Several writers quit, right, in response to this.
But the managing
Um,
editor that was told to remove it also quit.
yes.
That's wild. So okay, so it's basically a walkout because of this. They're like, look, we can't. Yeah. Ugh. This is like, why is this the case? Like, why? Like, I just don't understand. Like, why does it have to go this far and about something like this? I just don't understand
Yeah.
this. Like, maybe I'm just like misinformed or confused, but it seems very like sort of preemptive decision making. Like, we don't want to have anything to do with this. Sponsors are gonna run away. But
Yeah.
if it comes
Or
from the investor, like it's not even like Procter and Gamble called, stop doing this. It's like an
yeah,
investor.
I'm not exactly sure what you thought you were investing in when you invested in a online news website.
It's Vice. Like that's their whole thing. They were like controversial. They have like I've been to their office in Brooklyn a couple times. They have like giant beer tanks in the lobby. Like the first thing you see walk in is like, we are so cool. Look at all the beer that we serve our employees and guests.
Oh
You're like,
yeah, that's right. Because I was interviewed by Vice. I remember. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
No longer. It seems very hollowed out. Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah,
that's
that's
my own, or that's my pwn. Like
yeah.
this weird, shitty censorship story is just impacting all these other areas of like, the game quality of life ecosystem and making it worse. Great. Thank you. Cool.
I want to see the financial impact of all this sort of in aggregate. How many people lost how much money and what's the repercussion? And is this like a part of a broader culture shift, or is this just was this going to happen anyways? Like what's
Oh, I think this is part of a global culture shift. I,
hmm.
I, I didn't get to talk about it a lot, but this is we are on a rising totalitarianism rightward drift. Like, that's I think that's what we're living in. The engine is really starting to hum.
Yeah, speaking as a Dutchman, it's like I don't think a country like the Netherlands is drifting so much as just taking a right turn. Like just it's just taking the wheel. Um this is arguably this is how that manifests, but it creates an odd business environment for a creative industry, right?
Yeah,
Whether that's journalist or game designer, you're like, okay, well, how
yeah,
do
yeah.
I the expectation that either of those jobs would be high paying is of course a little naive, but it's a real enforcement of sorts that you should consider when you enter into these businesses. Yeah. Okay. Let's keep an eye because I found it fascinating. Like I want to see how this like becomes a bigger thing.
All right. Awesome. We'll do so. Well, we've got a great platform for doing so until we get shut down. So, and with that, we should. I hear we're going to be talking about some earnings next week. Eh, Yost? We'll be back to our bread and butter.
Let's talk EA and Roblox earnings.
$$ Roblox, right?
Money numbers.
Money numbers. All right. And with that, we will see you all next week. Yost from the mountain, Lane from the heat dome. Good night and good game.